big piece about what maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers are thinking or doing came from yesterday's Aaron Rodgers appearance on the Pat McAfee show, where he said he's now 41 years old and he's got different things going on in his life. He's in a serious relationship, and he's not ready to commit to a team. And a lot of people think, well, why can't you still commit to a team? Well, we don't know what's going on in his life. But those people might also say, listen, Gerry Dulac was able to commit to covering the Steelers even though he was involved in a serious relationship with the television show Suits. He got through it. How's that for an intro, Gerry Dulac? How's that for an intro?
Pretty good, especially since Harvey Specter's coming back again on Sunday.
Ladies and gentlemen, Gerry Dulac is on top of
Not too bad. Your appreciation for
everything.
Suits, Rich, is boundless, as we all know.
Well, I mean, I'm only trying to keep up with you, Gerry.
There you go.
All right. You knew I was reaching out. You knew I was calling. You just knew it. So here we are. And thank you for appearing. What is happening right now in the halls of the Pittsburgh Steelers, Gerry?
Rich, anything Aaron Rodgers said is not anything different than the Steelers have known all along. I think the only caveat that publicly it was stated was the personal issues that he has in his life. You know, is he considering retirement? But maybe he told the Steelers about the personal issues too. But in terms of him taking his time, they've known that all along. They said it from the get-go. They know he told them he's going to take his time. Art Rooney said they are willing to wait. He says we're not going to wait for forever. I don't know when forever is, but you know their offer hasn't changed. It's been on the table. It's a 1-year deal. I can't tell you exactly what the number is, but it's not anything that's going to blow somebody away. And they're basically waiting for him to make the decision, and they are willing to wait. But anything he said yesterday was not any surprise to the Steelers. And let's face it, there's basically one team, and the other option is retirement. So we'll see what he chooses. But as we all know from Aaron Rodgers, who knows when and what that will be. So
if it's just a 1-year offer on the table for Rodgers, Gerry, that clearly means whatever Rodgers said on McAfee's show doesn't affect their draft plans. Would that be accurate?
That is correct. That is correct. They are proceeding along. Rich, I firmly believe that they are all in on the quarterback in 2026 based on what I hear and what I've been told. And you know, they will have extra draft capital next year between all the comp picks they will get, the 3rd and 4th round picks they should get. I believe that's when they will make a deal to get an extra number 2 next year. And now all of a sudden you can package an extra number 2 and maybe a 3 and a 4 and swap ones to move up to a position where you can get, one of the quote marquee quarterbacks. Now, I mean, look, I know other guys have emerged from the bottom of the draft and even later. Tom Brady, of course, being the classic example. Joe Montana, another. But those aren't the norm. And so I'm not going to sit here and tell you the Steelers won't take a quarterback. It's in the conversation, but it's only in the conversation if the other areas that they want to address early in the first round, particularly defensive line, doesn't work out for them. I don't see that happening, but I'm not going to sit here and tell you they're not going to take that they won't take a quarterback.
Well, again, Cam Ward's going first overall, as we all assume, I think appropriately. There won't be any, ass in you and me. So that means if the Steelers are sitting there at 21 and they have every other quarterback available for them to draft, they won't do it? You don't think?
No, I think it's all going to be contingent on what defensive linemen are there. There's 3 of them that they like. There's 4, but they understand that Mason Graham will be gone early. But, you have Walter Nolan, you have Derek Harmon, you have Kenneth Grant, the other big kid from Michigan. I will tell you, Rich, that they have a first-round grade on Jackson Dart, and they really like Shedeur Sanders, despite whatever post was put out there that he had a terrible meeting. It did not go well. Nothing could be further from the truth. They like the guy. They had a great meeting with him. They think obviously he's ultra athletic, as we all know. But I will also say this: if they had the number 1 pick in the draft, they wouldn't draft Shedeur Sanders. If that helps with any analysis or thought process you or anyone else might have, But that doesn't mean at 21, if certain other guys aren't there, that he won't be in the conversation. Not saying they're going to throw the switch on him, but there will at least be a conversation with him and Jackson Dart. But, if you're looking for a pecking order, Rich, I will tell you, best I can tell, the way they want to approach the draft is defensive line, running back, wide receiver, and quarterback. And you could throw a cornerback in there somewhere. But they are not going into the draft with the idea of we need to get ourselves a quarterback in the first round. And I do think, to a degree, Rich, I think they're still spooked by the whole Kenny Pickett evaluation. They took what was the best quarterback of a very average draft class, and I don't think they want to make that mistake again. And that's why I think all their eggs are in the basket 2026.
So is it possible we go home from Green Bay, Gerry Dulac, that the Steelers don't take a quarterback in this draft and are ready for Mason Rudolph to start unless Rodgers, for the lack of a better phrase, comes around? Is that basically a possibility, or you think they do add a rookie with a Friday night or a Saturday pick, and that kid has a shot to compete with Mason Rudolph if Rodgers stays in Malibu? Gerry, is that really a possibility for the Steelers?
Rich, I think that they will come out of the draft with a quarterback, and because they don't have a number 2 pick, and they are, a lot of people want to think they want to get that number 2 pick back. I'm not saying they won't, but I can tell you that they are not sitting here thinking we need to get that number 2 pick back. They are content to look at DK Metcalf as their second-round draft pick because that's what they gave up to get him. So now you're going from number 1 to number 3, which I think is 83rd.
Mm-hmm.
So now I don't see them taking a quarterback when they know they need to get another running back. And they are never averse to taking a wide receiver, and that wouldn't shock me either. But I can see them drafting one of the rookie. Drafting a guy to be a backup, not a contender for the starting job, in the 4th round. I can see that happening. But even if they don't sign Aaron Rodgers, Rich, they're going to go sign a veteran quarterback because they never go into
who? There's no Tannehill sits there, and I know he and Arthur Smith have a connection, but he didn't even play last year.
Desmond Ritter, Carson Wentz. Now, I'm not saying it's going to be those guys.
But Desmond Ritter is why Arthur Smith is the offensive coordinator in Pittsburgh.
I realize that. I'm just looking at some traces that could possibly happen. All I'm saying is, but this is the problem with waiting on Aaron Rodgers. You lost out on a couple possibilities, Jameis Winston, Joe Flacco. That is the one downside of waiting for Aaron Rodgers. But they are not going to go into a season with Mason Rudolph and then a rookie as the backup quarterback. They have never done that in their life. They always have 2 veteran quarterbacks. They always keep 3 on the roster, unlike most teams. And 2 of them are experienced, starting capable. I'm not saying the backup, is a Hall of Famer, but, just go backward and, the Charlie Batches and Byron Leftwich. And even when they brought in Mitch Trubisky, when they drafted Kenny Pickett and they had Mason Rudolph, that's what they believe in that position. So they're not going to go into the season with Mason Rudolph, Skylar Thompson, who have a hard time making the team anyhow, and a rookie quarterback. So Aaron Rodgers or no Aaron Rodgers, a veteran quarterback will be added somewhere.
What about Kirk Cousins, Gerry? He sits in the number 2 spot in Atlanta. We all know he doesn't want to be there. And the irony of Arthur Smith getting a quarterback from Atlanta would be rich. But that said, that's not a bad option.
It's
right.
That's correct. And I will tell you that is part of a thought process. The question would be, how much would the Falcons try to hold up the Steelers for Kirk Cousins? A 36, 37-year-old guy. The Steelers are certainly not going to invest a lot in terms of maybe draft capital to get Kirk Cousins. And so, but that would be a possibility. I would think it would be somewhere between possible and slim. but I will tell you that it's part of a thought process. I just don't know how serious it is.
Yeah, especially if they're looking at 2026 potentially for their quarterback of the
Right.
future. Gerry Dulac, Steelers insider here on the Rich Eisen Show. What's your interpretation, Gerry, of the T.J. Watt Instagram Deuces photograph? Do you have one?
No, other than I'm asked about it all the time. Look, TJ wants to stay here. They will want to keep him here. What it's going to take, we'll see. I can't answer that question right now. I think it's an end of the summer type of, August for sure type of a situation where that's where it would get resolved. He was a hold-in last time, and then, of course, they gave him that monster deal. But TJ's been hurt here the last couple years, and he's played through injuries. To his credit, but I don't. You're not going to see another monster deal like he had the first time relative to the salaries. But they want to keep him, and he wants to be here. So I don't read into this situation that TJ Watt is the next one out the door. I think he would be at least third in line if that were to happen.
Okay. So nothing to see here for Steeler fans freaking out over that.
Well, Steeler fans freak out all the time, Rich.
Well, I mean,
but no, I don't think so.
Right, but in terms of that, just the general sense, Gerry. As we wind down our conversation here, the Steelers are rightfully lauded for their patience, I think, and for their consistency, and for not churning. Right, we talk about this all the time. Right. That there's been 3 coaches there since 1969, and we all know the rest of the league doesn't do that sort of thing, which just makes it seem off-brand that they're now in year, 3 or 4 post-Big Ben, and they're chasing again at this quarterback spot. And in the middle of this chase, for somebody who is not a guarantee and clearly has a lot on his mind, famously, while they wait for him, they go ahead and flip a second-round draft choice for a wide receiver to pay him $30 million plus. It just doesn't seem ordinary there in Pittsburgh. And I'm wondering how this all lands on an observer of the Steelers for as long as you've been around. Gerry.
Well, Rich, I couldn't agree with you more with your assessment and observation there. All of what we are seeing seems very un-Steeler-like,
right?
Especially the pursuit of Aaron Rodgers. That's Mike Tomlin's deal. Now, I will say that if Art Rooney did not agree with it, then they wouldn't be doing it. So obviously, he is on board with this as well. But you're talking about a guy. When they signed Russell Wilson, it was like, okay, a 36-year-old. Now you're going to 141, who's going to be 42 in December, who won 5 games last year with the Jets. Had his lowest passer rating of his career since he became a starter. And his 3 wide receivers were Garrett Wilson, Devontae Adams, and Alan Lazard, which are 3 better receivers than the Steelers had last year, and he won only 5 games. And so to put all your eggs in that basket, a nice Easter symmetry,
nice.
It was surprising to me, and given, I'm not going to sit here and assail his character because I don't know him, but we all know what's gone on with Aaron Rodgers. He's a different duck for sure. And to align yourself and wait for that, it has been surprising to me from the get-go. Yes. And now this delay has caused them to maybe miss out potentially on some other veteran quarterbacks. They say they are very comfortable with Mason Rudolph, but I will tell you, this is the 3rd edition of them saying they're very comfortable with Mason Rudolph, and he's been bypassed and let go on the 2 other occasions.
Yeah, I remember. I mean, bypass for Trubisky. I was calling that game in Indianapolis where they just decided we are totally done with Mitchell, and they were finally done with him. And Rudolph finished off very nicely as the team made the playoffs once again, only to get one and done again, which is why I kind of bring all this stuff up. That they're searching for the next Big Ben, and it hasn't worked out. And now that comes in the form of waiting for Rodgers to make a decision. And clearly, as I leave you with this, the midnight strike is not the draft. It is not. They're going to go through the draft, one would think, not knowing and not having it affect them best they can and making a draft decision. So what is your best guess, crystal balling, the way this all works out, if at all, Gerry? Here.
You mean with Aaron Rodgers or
yes,
the first
sir.
order?
Yes,
yeah,
sir.
Well, again, you would be asking me to predict what Aaron Rodgers thinks, and Lord knows nobody can do that.
Right.
Me or you, Rich, as brilliant as you are.
Thank you, sir.
You got it.
Thank you.
You couldn't figure it out. So, but my guess is because knowing the Steelers, look, they're not flying by the seat of their pants. They are much smarter than I. That is for sure. And so I think they truly believe that he will sign with them, and that they will go forward. But they are well aware that may not happen. But I believe, and that they believe he will be on this team. So now, when I don't know that, but so if you have to ask me, that would be my feeling, just because of the way they are willing to wait. Otherwise, I think they would have had some other indicator to think, okay, you know what, Plan B better come into effect here very soon, and they're just not there yet. So I think he will be on this roster.
Gerry, thanks for the time. Greatly appreciate it. We'll chat with you after the draft.
Thanks, Rich. Always good being with you, my friend.
Right back at you. Steelers Radio Network host and Steelers insider forever and a day, Gerry Dulac, here on the Rich Eisen Show. And I hope he's right. Let's be straight up. With all due respect to our friend and former Rich Eisen Show in-studio guest, Mason Rudolph. And I front-loaded the with all due respect.
Well done.
Catch the Rich Eisen Show live weekdays from 12 to 3 p.m. Eastern on Roku Sports Channel in the U.S.